you have to understand what feeds the physicality and what feeds the emotion. When you're making cups, you have to understand the emotion and the physicality. Which part of the system you are using for what purpose? What material is used to feed the physicality and what material is used to feed the emotion? For those of you who are doctors, or those of you who are opening into this world of plasma technology, in the health section, it's very important to understand this. Let's take the case of obesity. Fat people. Why do we get fat? What does fat means? Why some of us can go on a diet and suddenly the first 2 weeks lose 10 kilo, and then 3 weeks later we forget our diet, we put 15 kilo back on. Understand the structure. And then understand the connection between the physicality and the emotion in respect to being fat. Do we get attention being fat? Do we control the structure by being fat? Bigger. Look at the world leaders. The ones who are very big, they walk, they insert the presence with their structure. The ones who are short work underneath. And they achieve more because, as we say, the short people, 2/3 is on the ground, 1/3 is above. The tall people, big, the whole lot is up, very little on the bottom. And the ones who are short always have been effective because they plan things to cover the height, but in fact the height should be irrelevant. A man's soul is the same irrespective of the height. Understand why you're getting fat, why the person is so fat and gets fatter and fatter. Because inserts the position of emotion. When we were in the Sensano, anybody who's been in that area with us, we used to see very, very slim. You don't see fat people. It's just a part of Italy. Fat does not exist, or if they are, they hide, they don't come out. But when you look at the face of these people, very slim is not happy. Because the soul is not happy. Condition of the physicality has forced the soul to a position not to be. They are very sad faces. You come to the south, people large, normal, very happy. Because they don't have to hide to fit, to be by the leg, the Sansana Lagada, that it fits all the models who are around there. Money buys beauty. Here in the south, food buys beauty. You can eat whatever you like. You feed the emotion through the physicality of the food. Understand this, because then you understand what I'm talking about. How do you get fat? One feeds the other. When you are fat, when you get fat, and why we see such obesity in the United States, you use high content salt, sodium. Big Mac, chips, fries, pizza, huge amount of salt. Even in Western Europe, it has become fashionable to put salt into ice cream to enhance the sweetness. Subtle salt in ice cream, because the different part of your structure of emotion tastes, smells the salt before it touches you, enhances the sweetness of the sugar. So salt has become part of the structure. When you absorb salt, salt in the body of a man cannot stay in the sodium content as a plasma. It needs the environment which with it creates both oxygen and hydrogen, and in a specific way, plasma of water. Now, you have taken salt, you have brought in the plasma of the water. Now you have to store it. Storing this, it brings the amino acid methylcholine, because that's a protein. It's the only way you can stop the damage of an AOH. You contain it. When it's needed, when you're producing nanomaterial in the structure of the physicality of the body of a man, the way you did with your copper oxides. But it doesn't get used. So what the body does, the body creates sacks of nanomaterial to store this guy. So now you have a store of sodium. What happens when you go on these diets to lose weight? What you do, you get rid of Mr. Water. You get rid of OH, plasma. I have a problem here. Now you have a sac which you got rid of the water. That's why you see huge losses so quickly, because now what you lost in the first 2 weeks is actually the water in the sac. But what you haven't done is you have not got rid of the sodium. Sodium stays embedded in the sac. You got rid of these guys, but not the sodium. The minute you start forgetting, and the body cannot go any further, because you get to a stable point that you're not losing any more weight, because I lost so much weight now it doesn't do, you give up, you start drinking and eating the same, you start putting water in the sac. And then what happens? Now you get blown up again. So you're back again to the same position. What's the problem? How do you solve this problem? In the brain of a man, there is a process of limitation. Because when the sodium is hidden here, the body is aware of it, but it keeps it for emergencies. Sodium is the most important element for the conversion of the gans into a solid state when it's in a specific plasmatic NaOH. So what happens? For you, the main target to lose weight is to get rid of this sac. And the only way you're going to get rid of this sac, if you get rid of the sodium. How do you get rid of sodium in the body? As I said, there is a limitation in the work, but the limitation is overridden because of the need of conversion. So what happens, what you got to do, you have two choices. You make a gans of the material to get rid of sodium, to withdraw its plasmatic condition, but then you still have to handle the other parts, or you let the body does it in a very easy way. You look, you put your finger on your tongue, the index finger, you wet it, because then when you wet it, you touch your index finger on the tip of your tongue. The body is preset because it knows what you're doing. It wets a specific size of the finger, tip of finger wet. This means what you're going to do, this is what I need the amount of, this is what I can handle. Then you put the wet finger into a salt container, in a salt pot, whatever. Then you take the salt and you rub it on your tongue, and then you taste the salt. You taste the salt for 10 seconds, 15 seconds in your mouth, in your environment of the core of the roof of your mouth, around your teeth. And then what you do, you can't swallow not a bit. Then you wash your mouth 3, 4, or 5 times. That you cannot taste the salt, but you feel the salt. You know the sensation. You wash your mouth thoroughly, that nothing goes into the stomach. In this process, while you're doing this, rubbing it and rubbing it, the physical part of the body sends the information to the brain. Huge amount of salt is coming. Where am I going to store it? So what the body does, it decides to get rid of the salt which was sitting in the sacs, because a lot is coming. But the only piece of information which is not transferred in that 30 seconds that you're going to spit it out is not going to go in the stomach. So now, due to rapid crisis, the body disposes of the salt out of the sac, closes the sac, and goes into urine, and you dispose of it through the same lymph system as you bring it in. Now you have a sac which is just a fat, no seed of salt, to become a sac of water to increase fat. And then when it comes to burning energy, because now there is a fat which is not needed, the body starts closing the sac, getting rid of the amino acid as an energy source. This way you lose 3 to 5 kilograms over every month in a very natural process. You can do this salt wash once in the morning, once at night before you sleep, because then it processes different part of the material of the body which is not needed. You close the sac, you lose weight. But again, this comes to a point you have fed half of the equation. Because don't forget, the emotion side has to be satisfied with the physicality too. But because you've done this process so naturally, is the body has decided where it doesn't need it. It's happy with it. Now you have to sort out Mr. Emotion. How do you satisfy emotion? Emotion is satisfied when the correct amount of energy in the field strength of the emotion, which is connected with the carbon, is available. How do you make this available? It means very much it's like what I call, let's say, a table which is cluttered with dust. You want to get rid of the dust. Emotion is a coverage of the part of the brain which has no physicality but is covered with the energy. And this energy, because of the structure of the brain of the man, is connected to two things, to calcium or to carbon. And this energy of rapid energy use of carbon conversion with hydrogen connection is part of the progress of energy emotion the body needs. That's why we drink alcohol, to feed the in that everything is okay, and then the physicality can't control too much sugar of it. That's why we are happy with chocolate, because the energy released to the carbon through sugar carbon link is what we need to bring a satisfaction that emotionally that cloud is covered. It's like you go into a room, is full of dust, you clean it, you just by brushing everything out. So the dust goes back in the air, but you haven't taken anything out, you just put it in motion. And then when you go away, the dust settles again back on the dust. That's what happens with you when you take sugar, when you take alcohol, when you take chocolate. So the key to the emotion is sugar. Connection of it, hydrogen and carbon. So what do? You go back again, lunchtime, and early afternoon. Or in the afternoon, what you do, you go back. This time instead of going to the salt pot, you go to the sugar pot. You put your finger again on your tongue, it wets it, it tells it how much it needs because it knows your intention, how much sugar you need. Dip your finger in the sugar pot, put it back on and play it in your mouth for 30 seconds. But don't swallow anything. It's like holding your breath. Then wash your mouth totally 3, 4, or 5 times, that there is no sweet sugar CH goes into your stomach. So what has happened is that the brain receives the information the same as the salt, but this time in the emotional part, that there is so much is coming, there's going to be so much happiness that we can't handle. So what the brain does, informs the organs of the body which is holding sugar for happiness time or for release of the pain, because the happiness, that's what it means, that's when we hold most of the sugar, to be released into the blood circulation. Because don't forget, emotion comes through the blood. Physicality of the salt release went through your lymph. Now you receive so much sugar in your blood, waiting for this sugar to come in, but now you wash it out. Now there is no way the sugar can go back in. So in that point, you start releasing the sugar in different form, which is needed by body. And if you do it too much, you get absolutely drunk out of your head. Because now it's like drinking a bottle of whiskey. But what this does is, like, as I said, you dust the room, but dust the table, but all the dust is in the room and it settles back out. This time you put a vacuum cleaner and you take all the dust out. There's not much to sit on the table. So in that process, you have changed the level of the emotion of the man. So now you find a balance between the emotion and physicality. This is how a stable loss of weight is created. It'll happen because as you lose, you change the state of mind. With the sugar, you do every 2 or 3 days. With the salt, you do it every day, twice a day. So you bring a balance to physicality and emotion. You get rid of the water, you get rid of the salt, you get rid of the housing, and then you find a pleasure to the size where you are. None of us has to be size 8. You put 2 hands around it, you can feel it. And none of us is happy with size 80, because depends what it satisfies the emotion. So now you understand from the beginning of the teachings why we speak about the physicality and emotion and the line of connection between each other. So somebody is happy with size 80, size ball, 250 kilogram, because this way they get the emotional attraction and attention they need. And somebody is happy with a size 6 or 8. And somebody wants to be 6 or 8 to get attention because it's fashionable, but psychologically they don't want to be that, they want to be 10, 12. And then you get the feature we see in North Italy.